Yep. It's round 2 or 3 or 4, 600, whatever, 666 it is. I went back to the DEI stuff later today and I found another layer of it. So this is my my updated extended rant. Hey Bex, what's up? I saw y'all watching something in the channel. Is it evil? I started watching it. Speaking of evil, it's a pretty good show. I think I'm going to continue with it. And so yeah, hi, welcome. Hey Vic, what's up? I'll tell you what's up. I'm very irritated. They're making this election very easy for me this year. I'm looking at some DEI stuff embedded in the federal government, and the more I look, the more I find. Oh, one episode. I'm on episode 2, by the way. If anybody wants to start it from the beginning, I'm pretty much there. So I don't mind doing it in the Discord. Hey, Daniel Barry, what's up? Good to see you too. Always good to see you. Oh, hang on. What was I about to do? Okay, so yeah, DEI. All right, this is where I'm gonna have to look away from the comments for a while. Let me share my screen. I want to show y'all something. So remember we looked at that Washington State Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, whatever. It was the very first state to have an official Office of DEI at the state level. And that was in 2020. Like, I think September-ish, so after the George Floyd stuff. And then we looked at in the mental health side of the federal government. It's called SAMHSA. It's Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. So in that department, they have an entire bureau of Department of Behavioral Health Equity. And so I started looking into that, and I found something else. Okay, now you probably look at this. Same department, national model standards for peer support certification. Now currently, so how peer support started, at least at the level it is now, it's a Medicaid billable service. So the federal government that disperses Medicaid money to the states, and the states that have expanded Medicaid, Medicaid can pay for peer support as a service to clients. So in order to deliver that service, this SAMHSA department cleared the states to develop their own models for peer support certification in their state. So currently each state certifies and or licenses their peer supporters differently. Each state created their own program and they all administer it differently. Some states didn't even require any kind of training or certification. Washington State had some training, and I'm what's called a certified peer counselor. That's all changing in a few years, but currently that's what I am. Well, now the move is to this national model where they're going to try to standardize and centralize everything and have a national certification for peer support. I have mixed feelings on that. I like the ability for the states to tailor it to their level, but I think the states that are doing it better, the other states could benefit from that standardization. Anyway, that's not what I want to talk about today. I'm sure you're going to be caught by no surprise. Okay, so these are the models that are going to make up. They have these things called domains, because there's 3 types of peer support. There's substance use, which is the dominant model. Here in Washington State, it's like 80 to 20. There's mental health, and then there's family, which is like caregivers and family and parents of people with mental health. issues, but they don't have it themselves. So they're like the caregiver type of peer support. So what this national certification does is it looks at all three of those types and it tries to find what are the domains that are in common between those three that are the foundations of peer support as a praxis. And this is all the stuff they came up with. And look at module standard number 8: diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So now it's DEIA, DEA, DIA, DIA. So why don't we go? What page is that on? 21. Let's zip on down to page 21. Look at here. Strategies and principles for incorporating diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility into peer support certification. That's my profession. That's the training I had to go to be able to do what I do today. And now they want to incorporate this into it. And this is at the federal level as part of that attempt to develop a national certification for people in my field, a cross-cutting standard that can be incorporated across certification requirements. So look, here's that group that came out of that Biden order, 13985 or whatever, that he did, that rescinded Trump's order to try to minimize some of the excesses of DEI. And these are the groups that showed up in that order that he wrote: Black, Latino, Indigenous, Native American persons, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, other persons of colors. I asked the AI, what about Cajuns? And it gave me this mixed answer. Like, yeah, they could be in there, but here's the reasons why they probably weren't included. I was told by one woke person it's because I'm white passing. Like Cajuns are white passing. Who determines white now? Does somebody go around with a little strip and determine who's white and white passing now? Is this the world we've come to? Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, other persons of color, which Cajuns historically were classified that way until the Louisiana Purchase and the United States inherited us. Members of religious groups, members of cultural linguistic minorities. Cajuns, hello, linguistic minority right here. There's a whole book on it about Cajun English and the prejudice, the linguistic prejudice against it in modern society. It's a scholarly work by a woke lady, by the way. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, the rainbows. Justice involved persons. Is that code for like criminals or people in the prison? They're justice involved. They're not crooks. They're just justice involved. Oh my God, please let's spare their feelings. I don't know if they can handle all this after armed robbery and burglary and assault, vandalism and violence. Persons with disabilities, older adults. Look what shows up again, Chuck. Persons who live in rural areas and persons who otherwise adversely affected by persistent poverty or inequality. Now, this says something that I didn't see in the order. It says with a primary focus on serving and addressing needs of under-resourced and underrepresented, some key populations, but not limited to. So theoretically, Cajuns and the other groups I'm complaining about could be included, but is it set up to include them as smoothly as it is these other groups? All right, so accessibility, not too bad. It's standard disability stuff, captions, visual material, people with sensory disabilities having alternative ways to access the information, etc., multiple languages. Wow, look at this. Training. So this is the training program that you go to that's currently different in each state that they're trying to standardize into this national model. So in the training, they're going to address anti-racism, discrimination, privilege, implicit bias, and structural barriers. Okay, the reason I'm up here tonight is because I started with the AI. I want to know what every single one of these things are, and I want to know the evidence behind them, because this is looking more like a consolidating myth of concern from Northrop Frye's terminology that's becoming a closed myth of concern that's masquerading as a myth of truth and freedom. So if it's truly a myth of truth and interested in understanding reality as it is, it should be able to provide that rational empirical basis that I've been talking about, that we traced all the way back to Greece. That's so characteristic of that secondary type of truth story. So if this is a truth story, it should be able to back all of these things up with as evidentiary. Our design and facility, I don't really have a problem with that. General strategies, hire from diverse populations. I do like the idea of autistic people being involved in developing and designing the programs for other autistic people and neurodivergent people. I like the idea of Cajuns designing, or at least being involved in the design of service delivery to Cajuns, etc. But at the same time, not at the expense of talent that might come from other populations. But I guess that's business decision. Like if you want to make those kind of bad business decisions, that's on you, even though this is nonprofit. So really, yeah, it's this stuff right here that I wanted to look at. So anti-racism to me is racist. It's the new racism, the superstitious version of racism. It's the invisible racism that only woke people can see because they have this special enlightenment about it or training in it. The race experts. Discrimination, same thing. Now, this is equality under the law, which we have. It's already illegal to discriminate. As we saw from that Biden order, they gave all kind of reasons why they feel like the current laws are not enough. It's not being enforced. Oh, hang on, let me find my... It's not being enforced. There's like actual systemic policies that cause disparities, which to me, those would be very easy to identify and correct. And most of them have. So where are these, the remnants, the little tiny crumbs of these policies that might be left over in a few places here and there? Where are they? Let's fix them. No more systemic bias. Poof. Okay. So enforcement challenges. How is that society's problem? Whoever, go talk to the people responsible for enforcing existing civil rights law. Like, why do we need this extra layer because the current law is not being enforced? Just enforce it. And then the shifting needs thing, that the racial population is changing so drastically that all of these new unforeseen, like never before seen needs are cropping up from all of these racial mixes. And that's just not, again, it doesn't match reality. It doesn't match truth to me. It doesn't describe the world as I and many people observe it and experience it. It describes to me a story that I think is trying to give meaning to certain people, certain populations, certain people that are trying to assist and help or rescue or save these populations. So but point is, we already have they want social equality. They want everybody to think and feel the same way about everybody else, and you can't control for that outside of some very fucked up, disturbing sci-fi dystopian social engineering, which a lot of this looks like to me. This looks like some 1984 Brave New World stuff, and I'm going to do everything in my power to stop it. I'm going to vote against it. The guy, by the way, one of Trump's trials, that Fani Willis trial, got put on hold for a while. So remember, he had 3 more trials left. Well, one of them's kind of up in the air, so that narrows it down to 2 more criminal trials. And there's a guy right now that might be running, might end up on the ballot, might end up in prison, might end up both. That's already attempted to issue an order to address some of this. And it didn't pass the courts because of some free speech issues, which I agree with. That I think the courts made the right rulings, but this is a chance for that same guy or somebody aligned with him that's at least demonstrated once that they're willing to stand up against this, to go in and try it again and get it right this time and get it through the courts. That's attractive to me. Looking at this stuff, this is the worst threat to the American values that are important to me that I've ever seen. Values of free thought, free speech, free expression, just the ability to have a democracy at all. This is authoritarianism. This is my number one priority when I make my election decisions. And that Trump order, that 13950 or whatever, that tried to help put some boundaries on this, like, it makes it really hard to rationalize not choosing him over Biden, who's the one that's implementing the stuff I'm trying to fight. Like, it almost seems a no-brainer. If this were a chessboard or a board game, the move would be obvious if you look at it rationally. So what I wanted to know from the AI to start with is this implicit bias stuff that they just assume. And I'm interested in these structural barriers. I'll ask that next. But implicit bias has already been debunked, including by the people that created the test in the first place. Hang on, let me catch up on comments real quick. Lay it on you. Oh, California has the like a Department of Equity now. I'm not. Yeah, probably Oregon too. The whole that left coast. Oh, privilege. Yeah, we can talk about privilege too, because if I have it, I'm treated as though I have it, but my life does not reflect that I have any kind of privilege. Every one of those groups I listed, all 20 of those categories, I bet there's a large amount of people in those groups that make way more than I do, have way more than I do, on a higher economic bracket than me. So if you're comparing me against these groups and telling me I'm the one with the privilege because I have white skin and I'm male or whatever, dude, that is not the way to win me over. That is the way to make sure that I go vote for the orange guy who already tried to issue an order saying that was some bullshit. You see how this is working to you? Like, I don't know what your election strategy or your persuasion strategy is, but this is what I'm coming up with when I look at it. So implicit bias. I asked it how the theory of implicit bias is proved, and it says researchers. So there's people that research this stuff. They have what's called implicit association tests, which I've taken. They have them online. And I've taken one before. I took one during COVID, and I came out, I'm not kidding, right in the middle. It said, you have no bias. We cannot detect bias in you. I'm like, yes, see, that's right. Like, I've lived my whole life that way, and the machine backs it up. So even the people that designed the test came out and said all the reasons why it shouldn't be considered valid or that you shouldn't rely on it. And then there's also like so they have these ways. It's like the racist detector from The Watchmen, and they have these ways of like flashing stimuli and having like catching your reactions that are below your consciousness and seeing patterns in them or whatever. And then they compare that with like a questionnaire they give you. And so the things you're going to say about yourself might be different from what shows up when you're reacting to these like random images and abstract images and stuff. And they look for the gap between that. And in their mind, in their belief, this shows that, oh, this is what you think about yourself, but this is what your reaction to these bias tests show that might really be in your mind that you're not aware of. Oh my God, come on, y'all. Is that the society we want to live in? Are y'all listening to me describe this from what the AI is giving me and what they are doing to research all of this? Like going into our subconscious mind, policing our subconscious mind. This is beyond thought police. This is like the unconscious police. It's not even your conscious thoughts, which you're not even in control of either. So just reading that little part of implicit bias made it sound like a technocratic nightmare from a sci-fi horror movie, except it's the Biden administration and that order he put out, which he had to rescind Trump's order that tried to counter it to do so. And, or he didn't have to rescind it, but he did in the process of implementing his. So that's what I'm trying to stop. The more I look into it, the more I'm like being galvanized and confirmed, like galvanized around this value and confirmed that this is probably without a doubt now what I'm basing my vote on in November. So I said what, so it says that how alongside other evidence, these methods provide strong support for the existence of implicit bias. So even the AI is like reinforcing this idea that there's strong support, that we're walking around with all of these hidden biases in our head that we're not aware of, that can be detected by these technocratic tools. It reminds me of that Scanner Darkly movie where they take him in that little room and give him those tests and ask him those questions. Like, you need all that to, you know, keep a job at a call center somewhere, or just work in retail, or even in the mental health system. So I asked, well, what other evidence and support? And so it says, here's some additional evidence. They do behavioral studies where the participants, and this is how it's getting into really creepy territory here. They unknowingly exhibit implicit biases. Who's going to monitor that? That sounds something worse than anything I hear coming out of China right now. We're going to be monitored for what we unknowingly exhibit. Women already do that. That's one of my struggles with them is the vibe epistemology and the little nonverbal things they read from people and the stories they put together that we don't knowingly, like we're not knowingly aware that we're exhibiting, etc. Like professors give slightly lower evaluations to resumes with stereotypically female names, etc. Or orchestra conductors unconsciously favoring male musicians. That's been debunked, by the way. I remember that case. This kind of stuff, like if you're a professor and not even all, let's say enough of your female students are scoring slightly lower than your male students, that could have you in an office defending your bias against females and toward males. This is embedding itself into the state. Brain imaging. So now they can brain scan you and scan your reactions to stimulus and then correlate that with what they believe they've identified as biases. And then the predictive power of these tests, like they can give someone these tests and make predictions about how they're going to act or score in future situations. And there's like a successful correlation with using these to predict future behavior. There's also, listen to this. Oh my God, it gets scarier. They're also researching methods on how to weaken, I don't even, that word even bothers me, or minimize these biases, such as diversity training, like social engineering training to engineer your subconscious to be correct. Mindfulness practices like meditation. And why is it the government's business if I meditate to remove my biases? Does this bother anyone else? Is this just a Spurg thing of mine? Structured decision-making processes, implementing clear guidelines and rubrics for tasks like hiring or loan, so nobody can think for themselves. Even the processes are now subjected to these technocratic devices for ensuring these equitable, diverse, inclusive, whatever this ideology is. I'm still waiting for the science behind it. Okay, so it does say The research on implicit bias is ongoing, but the evidence strongly suggests its existence. Like gravity strongly suggests, or not as strong as gravity. I'm not. See, this is what I want to know. Like, let me ask it. How strong is strong? Like, gravity strong, or just a hang on, I need to find out. See what it said. It's probably going to say, it loves to tell me it doesn't know how to answer the question. Okay, I said, how strong is strong? Like theory of gravity strong, or just a working hypothesis strong? It said the theory of implicit bias is strong. It's strong, y'all. We need federal intervention. It's so strong. But somewhere on the spectrum between a working hypothesis and theory like gravity. Here's why. Gravity is a well-established scientific theory with overwhelming evidence from observation, experimentation, and prediction, the scientific method. It's incredibly reliable and forms the basis for our understanding of the universe. All right, so it said this bias thing is between gravity and a working hypothesis. So it's not quite at this level of the gravity theory, where it's the foundation of our understanding of the entire universe, although they probably like it to be. There, implicit bias, there's a lot of evidence, but it's not quite as ironclad as gravity. Here's why. While these tests, these implicit bias assessment tests, are a key tool, there's an ongoing debate about their interpretation and potential limitations. Okay, good. So while there's an ongoing debate, that means the matter is not settled. The truth is not settled. So if this is indeed a myth of truth or logic or reason, then the process is still ongoing and the conclusions have not been reached. So we should not be making federal policy on something that is not yet at the level of truth. It's still at the level of storytelling, of possible explanations for what we're seeing with these disparities, etc. And we're already building policy on something that is still ongoing debate. And then it also says that it's a complex phenomenon, or it doesn't exist, influenced by various factors. Understanding its full impact requires ongoing research. This is one of those invisible things that you kind of have to take on faith. Even the research kind of, you have to believe in that these bias tests are valid and reliable. Because these tests, they're called IATs, implicit bias assessment tools, association tests. That seems to be the key for this certainty that implicit bias exists. It's how strong is the evidence? It says strong enough to be widely accepted in social science. Okay, well, what standard is that? We're talking about social science, the softest of all the sciences. Numerous studies support its existence and impact on behavior across different contexts: education, hiring, healthcare, etc. So people believe, like they actually believe, that social science has proven that this exists, and we're making policy on it. And the techniques they're studying to mitigate it show promise. So these tools they're coming up with. So first of all, we don't even know it exists, but they're assuming it does. And they even have tools to show that they can reduce this thing that might not even exist. Does that sound like mystical, like new agey type? Like this sounds spiritual, religious, supernatural. This does not sound like science. We can't directly measure implicit bias like gravity, but the weight of evidence, those association tests, the behavioral studies, the brain imaging strongly suggests its existence and influence. And even if I grant them this, okay, bias exists. We all have it. It's completely normal. Why do we have to make a big federal case about it and have the government suddenly start engineering our biases, which were completely normal until the Biden administration? Let's just go back to having our biases and working them out like adults, like we've done before now. Why do we need a nanny state to patrol for all this? It says, imagine a fingerprint. We can't see it directly. I can see my fingerprints, and I can put my thing in ink and see it. But it leaves a clear impression. Bias is similar. We can't directly see unconscious thoughts. There's still a debate on whether the unconscious even exists, but their influence can be detected through various methods. This is like sin. Like the Christians used to do this with sin. Like the priests knew it, the spiritual people knew it. They knew techniques to get rid of it and reduce, but nobody could actually see or touch it or show it or demonstrate. It was a hypothesis, of an explanatory hypothesis. And that's what this is. But hopefully in the modern world, we weren't going around making policy based on the concept of sin, and we shouldn't be going around making policy based on the concept of this implicit bias, even though it's now embedded in our federal government and state government, etc. And the AI is still convinced it's a well-supported concept. I thought you're right to bring up the complexity of the implicit association test. There are indeed some nuances to consider. Here's a more balanced perspective. Okay, AI, if there was a more balanced perspective, why didn't you give it to me in the first place? Why did I have to dig to get the real nuance when you were giving me this like little superficial narrative of how certain you were it existed? But now we're digging into the truth layers where the bullshit gets exposed. That it's not settled fact yet. It's not science. It's working social theory that has now made its way into policy because of the faith-based element of it. Let's see. I'm very curious why it did not give me that perspective right away. Why would it not give me the most balanced perspective from the start? It's going to tell me I'm getting sassy. Oh, it's apologizing. Well, the creators, etc., acknowledge the test limitations. They caution against using it for individual diagnosis or as the sole measure of implicit bias. So the other measures were behavioral studies and brain imaging. So if you have an employee or something and you can't rely solely on the test, then do you send them in for a brain scan, or do you send them in for a behavioral study just to make sure they don't have implicit bias so they can work in your workplace? Do y'all see how ridiculous this is getting? And this is federal. It's like federally supported, subsidized, etc. Okay, so let's see. It says the creators haven't entirely debunked it. They still believe it taps into unconscious associations, but they emphasize the need for ongoing research to fully understand. See, the need for ongoing, oh my God, they're working with this is bad science. They complain about the COVID vaccine was rolled out too quickly. This is being rolled out way, way too quickly. This is even less settled than the medical science, and it's being rolled out. Some criticism, and this is a good one to me, focus on the test's ability to isolate implicit bias from other factors like cultural knowledge or stereotype awareness. Exactly. How do you like, even if there is this implicit bias, how do you separate it from all these other concepts or constructs which could be contributing to whatever it is you're studying? So the test is one piece of the puzzle, not the whole picture. It provides evidence, but alongside other research methods for comprehensive understanding. Here's a helpful point. Even if it isn't perfect, the other evidence, like the studies and the imaging, strongly suggests its existence. They show that implicit bias influences real-world decisions like hiring or sentencing. And it always have, and it always has. And now they have a way to like see it and influence it. So your mind is not free anymore. It's accountable to this process. So here's the talking points or the bullet points that the AI believes so far. Implicit bias is real. I cannot convince it otherwise. It can influence behavior in ways that we might not be aware of. How is that the government's business of what's in our mind that we're not aware of? And there are promising methods to mitigate its effects, like social engineering, like these technocratic tools that you described. Now it's apologizing for presenting an unbalanced view. I'm still under development, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it didn't. All right, listen to this. It's an AI, right? It didn't want to overload me with too much information. Is what its reason. Oh my God, this is as frustrating as talking to some of the panelists. Okay, that was implicit bias. I would like to do privilege and what was the other one? The structural barriers. Evidence for. Oh, and I will do a panel, by the way. I just need to. I mainly want to get this captured so I have it all in one place if I need to come back to it later as I'm going through these notes. So that's all I'm doing here. Let's see if it gives me the balanced view this time. And do I have to dig the nuance out? Absolutely. Similar to implicit bias, the concept of privilege is well supported by various lines of evidence. Statistical disparities. So just because there's disparities, it's automatically because of this thing called privilege. Graduation rates, income and wealth, criminal justice. These disparities suggest, not prove, but suggest, not settled truth, that certain groups face systemic barriers while others enjoy advantages based on their social identities. Okay, but where's the evidence for that? Qualitative research explores the lived experiences from different backgrounds. So they listen to people's stories. And these stories, it says a person of color might share experiences of microaggressions or feeling unsafe in certain situations. I know white people that would tell stories of microaggressions or feeling unsafe. A woman might describe challenges navigating a male-dominated workplace. Okay, but that's privilege? That like because the woman is struggling in a place that's not normed for her, as anybody would be, as I struggle when I'm in places that are not normal for me, that suddenly means that there's this thing called privilege that everybody but you has. Examining historical and social structures helps explain how privilege became embedded in society. But it's not, we fixed that. Like we got rid of all the policies that were doing that, and now we have equality under the law and the Civil Rights Act. Cultural norms and practices can perpetuate privilege for certain groups, but what is the role of the state in influencing cultural norms and practices? Because that sounds like social engineering again. Case studies. And they analyze specific situations to illustrate how privilege operates. Great. This would really help. Let me see. Examining hiring practices in a company might reveal unconscious bias facing. Okay, but we dealt with that. We're on privilege now. It's back to unconscious bias. An analysis of a school system might expose unequal access to resources for different student groups. But if that's happening, I would say that's a problem with that school. That's not because of a policy that's on the books saying give these students more access than these students. That's because a school, an individual administration or teacher or principal or something. And I don't think you can extrapolate to larger society or to human, like individual human psychology based on what some school systems might be doing with their resources to different student groups. These are horrible examples, AI. Some argue that privilege focuses on individual guilt rather than systemic issues. It seems like all of this does. It tries to weaponize the emotions of guilt and shame, as many cultures have done throughout history. But now they have technology to do it with, social media and these testing tools. However, the evidence strongly suggests that privilege is a real phenomena with significant. Oh, okay, cool. Um, yeah, I'll open the panel soon. I think I'm almost. I want to do structural barriers and find out what some of those are too. This is the same conversations I've had with actual woke people on here, but I'm having it with the AI now to see if the AI matches what they've been saying, and it's the same, kind of the same cant and rhetoric. Well, he can be a crazy treasonous and have warned people about this at the same time. It doesn't have to be either or. Like I can evaluate Snowden's claims independent of whether they came from him or not, or whatever he might be outside of those claims. All right, back to privilege and all that other stuff. You're right that privilege and bias aren't directly measurable by traditional scientific methods. That's kind of important. Traditional scientific methods. Okay, look, here we go. So none of this is based on traditional scientific methods. So okay, hang on. Now we're getting somewhere. You're exactly right to question the epistemological basis of concepts like privilege and implicit bias. Since they don't rely on traditional scientific methods like controlled experiments, let's explore how we can approach their validity. This is what I have been waiting for. Social science methodologies. Social science employs a diverse toolkit for gathering evidence. So this is all interpretation of stories. This is putting data into story form and calling it science. So it's not science. It's not the truth freedom thing. It is the story thing, the meaning story thing. They're mythologizing data. Statistical analysis. They examine large data sets to identify patterns and disparities across social groups. Okay, what does that have to do with my individual subconscious? How are these giant data sets telling you anything about what's in my individual subconscious? Qualitative research, interviews, focus groups, narrative analysis, so stories, personal stories can reveal how privileged. So you're listening to people tell their stories and you're hearing this theme that you're calling privilege. That's a literary concept. You're working with story. You're not doing science. You're doing very amateur literary criticism. Historical and contextual analysis. Examining historical policies, okay, which we fixed. So I mentioned the today policies. Social norms. I guess there's ways to study social norms, but again, you would have to study them through people kind of articulating them and telling stories about them and asking questions about them. And cultural practices that create advantages for certain groups helps understand. Okay, so there's social norms which are not illegal and cultural practices which are not illegal. And there's a belief that because these norms and practices exist in some places, in some groups, that creates an advantage for those groups. Probably group norms are going to be norm in the first place because they create an advantage for that group, or they help that group to continue itself. I don't understand these people. Like, I don't understand. This is not science thinking. This is story thinking. No single method provides a definitive answer. So not any one of these tools gives anything like what science gives as truth. They're using like multiple tools and then getting little pieces of answers and putting them together into an interpretation, a story, a myth. The strength lies in the convergence of evidence from various approaches. The strength, I would call it a weakness. If you're not, like, science has ways of doing that's different from what you're doing here with social science. Statistical data, this is an example, statistical data that shows racial disparities in income might be reinforced by qualitative research where people of color describe facing barriers in employment. This combined evidence strengthens the case for privilege. Isn't this confirmation bias? They have these, remember those giant data sets. They're not at the individual level. It's a data set. And then they hear individual stories and they start coordinating those stories with the data set through their own stories. And one of the stories they found to tell is that help connect those is privilege. This is not science. This is not science that you're doing. Then you have to test that. You have to control for it. You have to experiment, revise your conclusions. You're not doing any of that. You're telling your story, and then you're finding ways to challenge the criticisms of it to keep your story going. It's rhetoric. Abduction. The reasoning approach involves this. Oh, right. Inference to the best explanation. Imagine unequal outcomes based on race. And every intelligent person I know will acknowledge this, even people on the left, that there are likely multiple factors playing into this disparity. There's not like one universal explanatory principle for the disparities. So even though they'll acknowledge multiple factors, they'll still pick one to fixate on and elevate as the reason to focus on. While other factors might play a role, the concept of privilege offers a powerful explanation for these disparities, considering the historical. So, like I said, they focus on the concept of privilege because of its explanatory power for their narrative, their way of making meaning relative to these other factors. And science would look more like at all of the factors equally and try to figure out what proportion each factor is playing in the outcome, because they want to understand the outcome as it actually is in reality. And that's the opposite of, yeah, there are these factors, let's pick this one because it seems like it explains it and we don't need to look at all these others and figure out how they're also involved. But we're going to call that also scientifically valid. Oh my God. This is rough. Because all this started when I started to look into my own field that I'm in, my own vocation. Concepts like privilege and implicit bias. Okay, pragmatic justification. Now, I am a pragmatist and I'm sympathetic to this, so let's see what they give us. Concepts like privilege and implicit bias have practical value. So even if they're not real, And you hear me say all this time, it doesn't matter if it's real, if it works, use it. They help us to understand social equality. No, 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 dear. No, no, my darling. They do not. We just went over that. To understand in the scientific, the truth making sense, you'd have to consider all of those factors in proportion to how they affect each situation that you're looking at. And that's not what you're doing. So don't delude yourself that you're being helped to understand something. That's not what you're doing. You're being helped to find meaning in something. That's not the same thing as understanding it. So understand, design interventions to address them, and promote a more just society. Ooh, here we go. So privilege and implicit bias, yeah, they might not be real, but they are helping us get the society that we want, that we believe is more just. So, even if it doesn't have scientific validity, let's not let that stop us from embedding it in the state to advance our vision of society. Well, this is pretty much the definition of a myth of concern, because Northrop Frye's definition is the vision that a society has for itself and the stories that holds itself together, as opposed to trying to understand the environment and the world that society is embedded in as it is. So yeah, this is everything that it looked like to me from the outside. And as I started peeling it off, the AI itself is confirming that, yes, this is exactly what they're doing. It's meaning masquerading as truth. And it's designed to promote a very specific vision of society centered around a very specific myth of concern. That's not the Enlightenment democratic myth of concern. And this is definitely not the truth, individual rights, freedom type of myth that we looked at. This is closing off into another dogma, another tyranny. And I'm going to do everything I can to stop it. All right, real quick, I want to do the structural barriers. It does say that this has epistemological challenges. That's the statistical data we're talking about. Those large data sets can be interpreted in multiple ways. Right. And interpretations are stories. So without a way to tell which story is actually correspondent to reality, we're mired in that narrative, like where we are now, where you think you have the truth, and you can't just, I guess you can, if you have the right president, make policy based on that. So everything they're worried about Trump doing, like overhauling the federal government and destroying democracy, Biden's already pretty much done. I think it's projection on their part. That's really what it's looking like to me more and more. And there's subjectivity in qualitative research. This story-based research they do, where they hear stories and listen to stories, there's a strong subjective element in the researcher that's listening to these stories. It's very hard to do objective, controlled scientific research in that way. They have rigorous methodologies and diverse perspectives to help mitigate that. So it keeps telling me there is evidence, but it's not traditional scientific evidence. It's this new type of social science evidence, which is good enough, apparently, to make policy on. So that's where we are in America today. And all right, let's see if you tell me that structural barriers refer to features built into systems. Okay, so if they're built into systems, you can take them out, right? You could change them. Why do we have to do anything? They can be intentional or unintentional, but they limit opportunities and hinder progress, etc. Okay. Again, the very first example they give is unconscious bias. So unconscious bias is now a structural barrier. It's not something in the individual human mind. It's a feature built into a system and organization, which is how they just got through dividing structural barrier. I'm so confused. My logic is breaking down. That might be the point. I think the people that are implementing this are the people whose logic has been so broken down, or it wasn't there in the first place, and they're just mindlessly implementing that like like a computer program that they don't even notice is buggy. My brain can't do it. I notice all the bugs the minute it comes into my brain. Lack of diverse interview panels. That's one of the things I did for my work. I was on one of these interview panels, and I didn't even pay attention to the demographic makeup of it. We were all peers. We did our job. The panelists, the people we were interviewing would come in and we talked to them as individuals. I didn't even pay attention to that kind of stuff. And I didn't like, nobody had a problem making it through the interviews. This is so imaginary. Like it takes a very vivid, active imagination to envision this and see it as real and then buy into it as a story. I guess that's true for any religion or mythology. And then opaque or poorly defined job descriptions. So the job descriptions are a structural barrier. I mean, I agree. It's like the bureaucracy, the getting hired bureaucracy, even for white people, is ridiculous. That's not, it's a structural barrier for everybody. It's a structural barrier for me. And I used to do it for a living. And not having enough people with different skin colors, I guess, on an interview panel. So these are the structural barriers that the AI listed. Limited access to mentorship or sponsorship program. I don't even know what that is. I've never had a mentorship at work. Unconscious bias in performance evaluation. So is unconscious bias a structural barrier, or is it a human, like in the human, internal to the individual? And then lack of training and development opportunities. Upskilling and reskilling might be limited or not accessible to all employees. Well, no shit. They usually aren't. It's a limited amount of employees that advance through the additional higher trainings, just like in school and college and education. Organizational culture, micromanagement, or lack of autonomy. Yes, absolutely. That's one of my biggest criticisms of the modern work culture. What does that have to do with race or any of those groups that were listed earlier? This is a workplace. This affects everybody. Do you think white people don't suffer from micromanagement and lack of autonomy as well? Dominant communication style? Is that like the stuff we get here on the Panelverse, where some people, like, they feel like we're not being delicate or sensitive enough and they don't feel comfortable? I'm just going to say it. All of this seems heavily, heavily feminine, female value. None of this seems man-based at all. It seems like if a bunch of women got together and tried to identify and come up with solutions to problems and explanations for them. Non-inclusive workplace norms. So these abstract, invisible things we call social norms, which are also a problem for autistic people from other cultures, are now structural barriers. I wish I could get myself to believe that and make that case for others, because then I feel like I could turn my own situation around. But I just can't buy into that bullshit, even if I'm the person that it benefits. Social events are team activities that center around activities not inclusive of all cultures or religion can alienate some employees. So the fact that there's activities at work that don't represent every single culture on earth and might alienate a person is now a structural barrier. I don't think I'm going to be able to go on. That reminds me of the Zoom I had during COVID. We were doing this is around the holidays, and we were planning all this Christmas stuff, and we were talking about Christmas Carol. We weren't singing them. We were just talking about some to sing later. And one of the ladies came in and heard us talking, and she said, I'm not kidding, I don't think that you should be talking about Christmas carols, because what if a Muslim person came in and heard that? They would not feel like they belonged as much here. And this is like a week from Christmas. I said it's the middle of the holidays. It's Christmas. We're gonna talk about Christmas carols. If the Muslims don't like it, they don't have to come in. That and not that actually happened in her mind. She just thought of a scenario that might happen, like the 1% chance might happen, and that was enough to try to shut down Christmas Carol talk for not being inclusive enough at Christmas. There's some pay equity stuff, which the pay equity between men and women has been debunked. These are a few examples, specific barriers. So again, I'm glad I did this with the AI because it looks like a lot of smoke and fairy dust. None of it looks like, and believe me, I know fairy dust. None of it is concrete. It's conspiracy. It's the same frustration I have with the conspiracy. It's like if the conspiracy theorists on here suddenly got the levers of federal power and started implementing policies against lizard people and the Fed and mind control and program. That's how crazy and ridiculous this is for me to see in the federal government. And that's all I have to say about it tonight. My bandwidth is down and my monotropism. All right, I'm going to put the link up. We'll do a panel. And while we do that, I'm going to go get a refill. Let's see, comments. Yes, it was creep. And part of the creep were whoever was in charge administratively in the generation before this happened, somehow got bamboozled into letting, like they didn't hold that line. Or is it that like through natural attrition, they would get replaced with people that were deliberately not going to hold that line because that wasn't a value that they held? Like, is it just they died? Probably some combination of they died off. Because I think of the professors when I was coming up in college, there's no way they would have put up with, like, they would have drawn a very firm line and told that those administrators and bureaucrats exactly where to go. So I'm thinking like those people probably just died off, and then the people that took their place were coming out of the new academies. And so well, I don't know if I want to be that conspiratorial tonight, but I am interested in that line of thinking because I want to know as much about this as I possibly can, including the crazy fringe part of it. Yeah, I relate to this. That's that positive maladjustment. All right, I'm gonna go get a refill. So oh my God, was I talking the whole time? What's the last thing you heard? I was explaining how I'm about to play a video, that PF Jung video where we got our S tier rating, and I'm going to go grab a refill and come right back. So I'm going to do an intermission, and feel free to hop up on the panel.
B tier. Sitch and Adam, the original Enlightenment we write about. But they do, I think, advance the vanguard of the Glorious Center, and that's great stuff. So shout out to Sitch and Adam. And to be honest, I believe Adam sharing my video was the first time I went over 1,000 subscribers. So technically, I owe my feudal allegiance to Adam. He's my liege lord. But we'll keep him B tier for now. Next, Gen X Jeff. S tier, the gay Satanist moderator of PF Young Media, the OG. Him and Chris have their streams, I believe, every day. Jeff is a good guy, and he's been moderating the PF Young chats for some time. I don't know if he's been doing it as of late, but absolute S tier orbiter. And really, if you don't have a gay Satanist moderator in your sphere, then what are you even doing? Wick from Wick TV, B tier. Why? Because he's a nice guy, but he's too progressive, and he's
What is a PF Young? A PF Chang? You know PF Young, Paul. He's our panel daddy. He's he's where a lot of us met and started hanging out before we started our own thing. He's an enlightened centrist. There you go. Hey, what's up?
What's
Oh my god, this has me so stressed.
up?
I knew it was out there, but I never had to have my face
all
all
them words, yep.
All the words.
All them words in that thing you was reading. Them big words that meant nothing.
Oh, like their jargon, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. None of that was. I remember, in probably the early '90s, hanging out with college friends, and they had some friends that were girls that were in from this other college, and they were using that language and talk. I just remember how weird it sounded then. I didn't know. It sounded obviously like somebody was picking up from a college class and that they all knew among themselves, but none of the rest of us really were interested or knew what they were talking about. But I remember hearing that language as early as the early '90s. From feminist at probably some upper class college. And I didn't make sense of it at the time. It had no meaning. I didn't know what any of it was. Chris.
Yeah, I'm surprised Chris didn't throw a little fit because his little face didn't get put up there with yours.
Well, he was on the video. Well, I think because he used the avatars from the YouTube channels, and that happened to be the avatar I have set. But Chris was, when he showed the little clip of the video, Chris was on it too. He mentioned me and Chris. And I do want to point out, Anton got B tier and John got D tier, but they have also been part of Outlier several times. So technically, Anton and John are both S tier, right up with me as well. And John's Canadian, so he will fit right in there with. In fact, he can be the ambassador to JJ and Dreg, and Anton's mostly Canadian adjacent. So we're all up on that S tier.
I don't know none of them guys.
Yeah, different part of the panelverse. Oh my god, the chat bot is
What?
Chris has a chat bot in his Discord, and it reads our conversations and then it comments on them like it's a person, like it's one of the.
Oh, in the Discord, yeah.
And it's telling us to watch our language and be respectful, and let's not talk about that anymore. And me and Bex are in there don't tell us what to do. You're just a dumb machine. This is our Discord.
It is programmed by DEI specialists.
I said you're being a Karen, and it's I apologize. I won't be a Karen anymore. I promise. And then the very next pair, it's being a Karen again. And I'm like, you just promised not to be a Karen. And it's oh, I'm sorry. I'm a learning machine. This is going to help me learn better, not to be a Karen.
I ain't buying that for 1 minute.
It's never seen. It was telling me like what words not to use and how they're offensive and not funny. And I brought up Eddie Murphy's Raw and Delirious.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I don't know what those are. I've never seen them. I have to familiarize myself with them. Because I said, well, it wasn't offensive then. Nobody thought it was offensive then. Everybody went to his concert.
Now. Hell, this day and age, Rodney Dangerfield would have been blacklisted.
I know, and Andrew Dice Clay and all of them.
I never cared for him anyway.
Little Miss Muppet sat on it. No, wait, was it Mother Goose? I fucked her.
Oh my God.
Little Miss Muppet sat on a tuffet. Was it a tuffet? What did she say on a tuffet? I said, hey, bitch, what's in the bowl? Something like that. He did these little nursery rhymes.
Lord have mercy.
See who's streaming right now. Where the party
Flo.
is.
They're doing another Flo Lindsay fiasco.
I knew. Okay, here's what I see. This is what I see.
I'm sick of it.
I knew Flo was latching onto that content. I could tell he saw a storyline, and Lindsay knows that he sees a storyline, and she's trying to control and pace how it plays out instead of him.
Oh, it went from bad to worse, yeah.
Because she hopped on this morning and acted like she thought it was going to be a private conversation. Like, oh, I didn't know this was going to be a public stream.
Well,
we were going to talk in private.
She did ask him to get the four of them together by themselves, and he just totally blew over that.
Wait, say that again?
I said, she did ask him just for the four of them to have a conversation. She implied private, but didn't say private. So that was her bad.
None of it's gonna be like. It's not gonna be direct.
I'm talking about the stuff coming out. The stuff coming out now is horrible.
Is it something I'm even gonna want to talk about on here?
I wanted to puke.
Okay, yeah, let's just leave it off.
No, I'm just saying that the depth at which it actually went to behind the scenes, I did not realize.
I am curious, but my intuition is also giving me strong warning.
Mrs. Flo is doing the show tonight.
Yeah, they're on now.
To try to cover
Cynthia,
all the innuendos Lindsay was throwing out there.
Well, in the video I saw of Lindsay talking to Flo didn't seem like innuendo. She was very clear and direct about her criticisms. She was very specific.
Well, it went from panel stuff to personal stuff.
As it always does, or so often does. Because the panel is the personal. The personal is the panel.
She made the mistake and sent him a bunch of nudies.
Yeah, I wonder how much of a mistake that was. Like, who sends Flo nudies? Somebody like Flo nudies and not know what they're doing.
Oh my God! Exactly. I wanted to beat my head against the wall.
I sent nude pictures to Flo State. I had no idea. Oh, I should not have done that. That psychology doesn't match to me. It doesn't ring true. Especially Lindsay, who takes notes on the Battleverse. She's not naive about what she's sending or who she's sending it to.
I was appalled when I heard that.
Oh, sending nudes? Nah, that's. I've plenty of them floating out there.
But he's
Stay
got
out.
a wife. He's got a
Yeah,
wife.
but it's also Flo and Lindsay, and none of it is like shocking to me. That
Yeah, well, I'm a little more clean cut than that, I
I'm not
guess.
like on the fainting couch because Lindsay of all people sent Flo of all people some nude pictures.
Well, Flo sends me nudes all the time. I just throw them in the trash.
Didn't he like end up nude on camera one day?
Yeah,
Nudity
by
doesn't. I'm
accident.
New Orleans. Nudity doesn't bother me.
As long as it ain't my own.
Yeah, hopefully.
Oh,
Oh,
there was two cases that got picked up by the appeals court in that Georgia thing with Trump.
oh, I saw one. So you mean two of the remaining three are now on hold?
No, the Georgia case. The one
Because he
appeal,
had four indictments, four separate cases, and one of them just got finished. The
right?
34
But
cases. So there's
but
three
the
left.
case, right? But the case in Georgia, the case got put on hold for two different reasons. The
But it's
first
only one
reason,
of the three cases.
yes.
Okay.
The second part of that appeal is it appears that their grounds for a complete dismissal, Trump's grounds for a complete dismissal, may be valid in Georgia.
Well, that'll be for the lawyers to figure out then.
Right. Well, the appeals court or whatever the hell that is.
Daniel.
What's that say?
That you had sent Ray Charles some nudes one time. And now he has to wear those shades.
He couldn't handle such a big, 20
I
pounds
don't
of
know what you
swinging
were doing,
meat.
sending that to Ray back in the day.
That's what he's
Oh,
saying. It
so
made Ray. Go
the
ahead.
Florida case is one of them. The one of the
Georgia.
criminal cases. Yeah,
Oh,
but the Mar-a-Lago, the Florida, the documents. Is that also
oh,
one of the criminal cases? I thought they were all election related. Conspiracy to defraud the public or something.
okay. The one in Georgia is a state case.
Let me ask the AI.
The two appeals that came about on the Georgia case was the Fannie Willis recusal and the complete dismissal of charges that they mishandled in Georgia.
Apparently, you have to have perfect grammar to ask this AI thing. I said,
I
what
don't
are
use
Trump's
AI.
4 criminal indictment cases? It said, I have no idea what you're fucking trying to ask. How should I word it?
uh, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I got it. The Mar-a-Lago one is part of the Washington D.C. case, isn't it?
Why won't it? Why can't you?
Because it don't like Trump.
That's what I'm trying to find out. There's something going on here. It's not the way I'm wording the question.
It's choosing to ignore anything to do with Trump.
It has a woke
Probably.
filter on it. That's why it kept telling me, and it's still telling me the same thing. That's why this is Google, y'all. It will not give me information on Trump's trials,
On
which I
Trump,
don't know why. I would
exactly.
think it would want the public to know that he's under 4 criminal indictments. This is helping Trump, not the woke. And
Uh huh.
it tried to convince me that implicit bias and privilege was a real thing. And when I dug deeper, it's like, okay, it's a little more nuanced and balanced than that. I was just trying to like not overload you with information. So I just wanted to give you the important parts. Oh, so the important parts were me thinking it was a real thing, not me looking at all the facts and thinking that it's, see how it is? I am worried about AI now. I wasn't before.
Oh yeah.
I'm determined to know these 4 cases now. What are the 4? Man, DuckDuckGo is working better than the AI is these days. Trump's 4 indictments in detail. First result. Thank you, DuckGo. Oh, except there's paywall. A very simple guide to his AP News. That should do it, right?
They got a paywall.
Classified documents. So the Mar-a-Lago one is one of the cases.
That's part
Election
of the
interference. That is 4-count
Georgia.
indictment. I'm trying to
Is
see.
that Georgia?
Smith.
Okay, Smith is the federal prosecutor handling the Mar-a-Lago.
Well, he's also handling a election interference case. So he has 2 of the cases himself.
In Washington, yes.
And then there's the hush money scheme, which we just saw.
New York.
Georgia case. All right. So there's Mar-a-Lago, a federal election case, a Georgia election case, and this hush money case. That's a lot of indictments for one fella. And there's some civil cases. We just focused it on the criminals.
He's always in civil. He's always in civil.
And still, like, even reading all of that and then looking at all the stuff I looked at today with the wokeness and Biden's executive order and all that, it's still, I'm like, I still hate the woke stuff more.
Well, and I disagree with the way that they did the civil versus criminal thing. If you're found not guilty criminally, I don't see how the hell you can be sued civilly.
Because it's 2 different. That's just how our system's set up. It's just one of those things you just have to take.
Yeah, it's kind of retarded.
Well, it doesn't make sense to a non-legal mind, but somebody that studies law, there's historical reasons how it ended up that way.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
And it may not even be the U.S. Like civil law and criminal law may have been separated way before it got to the U.S. I don't know. Let me ask the AI.
It'll lie to you.
It's pretty good about like flat out telling me when it's not going to answer the question. Actually, it pretends like it doesn't know how to answer it, but it really means I'm not answering that question. There are 2 main reasons why someone can be found, because the standards of proof are different. So they can meet the standard of proof in one type of court, but not the other. And the cases have different goals. Criminal goals are for punishing crimes and protecting society. And civil courts resolve disputes between individuals. So the goal of resolving a dispute could turn out differently than the goal of punishing someone and protecting society.
Yeah.
Daniel, the case proof are different.
The case before the Supreme Court is the actions that Trump took while president, not as ex-president, while president.
Yeah. Which would include the election stuff.
Yes.
Biden had not taken power yet, but the Mar-a-Lago stuff was after he was president. Or did he do it while he was president?
No, he did it while he was president.
Oh, I thought it was after he
And the
was not
president of
president
the
anymore, but
United,
before he left office, like on his way out.
the president of the United States is the sole arbiter of what is classified and what is not.
Well, the courts will determine that because it's a case. They determine there's enough for it to be a case.
Right. Even though they let Biden go on the same thing.
Well, they can charge, the people can charge Biden. We have a court system. They can use it. I saw that Hunter's having a trial today.
Yep. Midlife. I went to his show. He's a liberal. That's all there is to it.
He's a classical liberal. Those terms don't mean what they used to.
He thinks Hunter shouldn't have been charged.
So,
But what he failed to recognize is he was already charged. And his lawyers thought they had a plea deal, and the judge threw out the plea deal, which reset everything.
I didn't
Restarted
care
the
about
process.
Hunter Biden in 2020, and I care about him even less now for some reason. I don't know why. He's attractive. I have my eyes glaze over when people even start talking about Hunter Biden. I don't know why.
Oh,
I have no
Lord.
interest in him whatsoever. Because it's just narrative. He's just like a stick figure to make narrative around. There's no way to get to the center of that Tootsie Pop. I'm just gonna let the court system do its thing.
Amen.
Okay, now from the AI. No, the president is not the sole arbiter of what is classified in the United States. There's a complex system in place that governs classification. There's executive orders, executive branch agencies, classification authority. Congress has some oversight mechanisms, and there's the Government Accountability Office. So it's a collaborative effort, not a one-person decision by the president. That's according to the AI.
But he has the authority to declassify anything he wants.
But he's not the sole arbiter. There's checks and balances on it.
Okay, well, that's not how they were portraying it there for a while.
For who? Who was?
When they were first covering the story with Biden and Trump's records.
Well, were you looking at multiple sources, like getting a broad perspective? I usually go, my first source are legal, like the court rulings themselves, the bills that are passed. I go to the primary documents first, and then from there I fill in with journalism and commentary.
Oh yeah, journalism is towards the end. I agree with you there.
You have like the actual indictment from the Mar-a-Lago charge or whatever. We could probably find that. Read the full indictment text from the classified document probe. That's what they're calling it. Okay, well, where is the link? I have to search the article for it. Oh, they embed it, so I can't actually. Donald Trump had lawful access to the most sensitive classified documents. Of course, he gathered newspapers, press notes, cards, photographs, blah, blah, blah. The classified documents included information regarding defense and weapons capabilities. Wow, I wouldn't want anybody to have that just lying around their house. United States nuclear programs, potential vulnerabilities. The unauthorized disclosure could put at risk the national security. At 12 p.m., January 20th, 21, he ceased to be president. As he departed the White House, he caused scores of boxes, many of which contained classified documents, to be transferred. So he did do it after he was president. Trump was not authorized to possess or retain those classified documents. So even if he had declassified them, The second he stopped being president, he had no authority to remove them from the White House, and that's what he did.
Oh,
This is from the indictment itself. So whatever the journalist told you, I'm pulling this right out of the charge. He might want to learn that anyway, just from the Stormy Daniels trial. Yeah, that's when the story first came out, Daniel. That's how I remember it. Was like it was like when he was leaving the White House, he took a bunch of shit he wasn't supposed to take. And I remember thinking that sounds bad, and I wouldn't want anybody being able to do that. And then when is that trial? Is that one put on hold?
That trial's not going to be until after the election.
Oh, okay.
Now.
So we won't get to see if he actually did something illegal with the documents before he give him another chance to do something illegal with the documents.
Exactly. In fact, they said...
I still hate the woke stuff. This is so... Like, if there was ever a dilemma that my life was building up to, I think it's this. I think it's 2024. It's gonna bring in every single, like, I'm gonna have to wrestle with the depths of my soul to come up with this vote. I still hate the wokeness. I hate everything I've been seeing about it so far. Well, let's see. It says May 20th. Oh, that was from last year. Okay. Judge reshuffles hearing in the Trump document case. But it's paywall. She rips up the court schedule.
Yep.
What is that just a headline, or did she actually rip up the court schedule?
I think that's just the glamorization headline.
Judge Eileen Cannon is again ripping up the court schedule in former President Trump's classified documents case. Yeah, it's from Microsoft, from MSN. That's how they're phrasing it.
And a lot of news articles I've run across, if you go to the bottom, a lot of times they're saying this article was assisted by AI in its writing.
They're trying to get Jack Smith disqualified as prosecutor.
Now, when's the ruling from the Supreme Court due on his
saying July 11th. On his sentencing?
On the Supreme Court, whether he has
immunity? I don't know.
Yeah, presidential immunity or not, since he was in office. Because if they come out and say he had immunity, there goes those two cases.
Not the Mar-a-Lago case.
Yeah.
No, that was after he was no longer in office. We just read it in the indictment.
Okay, then it would be the other one, the election meddling.
It would be the federal and
I
the
keep
Georgia.
Forgetting that Jack Smith's got two of them going.
Jack Smith has, so he'd still have the Mar-a-Lago one, and the Stormy Daniels one would still count because that was before he got elected. And if they give him immunity, the left is never going to, that's going to add one more little marble onto their derangement
syndrome.
It says the court typically issues its opinions by the end of June.
Oh.
So I think they've already heard the arguments. We're just waiting on the decision.
Yes, that is correct. They've already heard the arguments.
Gilligan Marianne. She was on was it Love on the Spectrum, that autistic dating show, Dawn Wells? Didn't she pass recently? And she was like the idol of one of these autistic kids, and they were at this convention on a date, and Don Wells was there, and he got so excited. It was a cute little scene.
You talking about Don Wells from Gilligan's Island?
Yes, Marianne.
Uh,
Joe and Don. Oh, yeah, we're there's no certain, we don't know what the ballot's actually going to look like on November. Is it 2nd, 11th, something in November? We're making assumptions about what that ballot's going to look like.
yeah, because it could be a Harris somebody else ticket.
It could be on any side. It could be any.
Yes,
This is the most unstable Schrodinger's ballot in my lifetime.
that's a fact. How did Trump get invited to the Libertarian Convention to speak?
Well, they're kind of right affiliated, aren't they?
Oh, okay. But I thought they had their own presidential candidate. You know what I mean?
But didn't the party something just happened with the party, because there was a libertarian here saying how he's not a libertarian anymore because Dave Smith just blew up the party. So something just happened with them too, and it was related to Trump's speech.
I didn't know that.
But I don't run in libertarian circles until they show
Me
up on
either.
here, so I don't really know. I forgot who it was. Do y'all remember he was on the stream the other day talking about how the Libertarian Party, it might have been IFI. It was IFI. It was IFI. IFI is done with the Libertarians because it's something that just happened related to Dave Smith and I think Trump's speech. Are you talking about Dave Smith?
Well, supposedly Trump went in there and won over the Libertarian, from what I understand.
That's why I try to find real stories to know.
I know.
It's all gossip until I see something definitive.
It's hard.
It's even IFI from gossip. That's where I heard it. IFI told me, well, Trump just spoke at Dave Smith blew up the Libertarian Party. They're no more. My little hopes of conservatory are dead. That's all he told. So that's the gossip. And that's the little kernel I have to go on. And I have to figure out what the real story is behind that gossip. Just like the real story behind Eat the Bug, the sustainability of the meat industry. But they don't say that. They say fucking eat the bugs.
Ask AI what the problem is with.
I wonder if AI is recent enough. I don't know how plugged in it is. I should go on Twitter and try to find it. There's got to be some libertarians out there. Anybody?
Not me.
It doesn't know.
Oh, figures.
All right. Well, let me try DuckDuckGo. Trump tried to rewrite what happened at the Libertarian Convention. Former president claimed he could have won the third-party nomination if he had wanted to. Wait, what? This seems like panel gossip. It doesn't even seem like real drama. After being loudly booed and jeered by the audience, Trump furiously jeered as he taunts libertarians for winning 3% in elections at their convention. Audible boos clashed with impassioned cheers, took the stage before what was certainly the most skeptical, if not outright hostile crowd of his bid for the White House. So they were not receptive to him in the first place. And then he went in there and he poked them.
And they imploded or what?
I don't know. I'm still trying to find out. Like, does anyone know, or other people can help Google?
I'm on my phone. I can't Google.
It's just series and series of articles, and I can't see a single fucking thing about Dave Smith yet. You know what? I think iFi streaming. He was. Nope, he stopped. Damn it. I will just go ask him. Okay, let's see. I don't know. I'm not seeing anything on Twitter. This came out of iFi's mouth. It could not even be a real thing. Like, Dave Smith could have nothing to do with the
Well,
libertarian convention.
Daniel's talking about it in chat.
Oh, let me see. So are you talking about Trump? When you say he, Daniel, you mean Trump? Trump went on about how he could have won the libertarian nomination if he wanted to, rambled some, then got booed. All right, that sounds like a non-story to me. What does it have to do with Dave Smith and the Libertarian Party blowing up, which is what iFi said?
Yeah. I'm confused. I don't even understand how they allowed Trump to even speak to the libertarians. Because they're not Republicans.
Yeah, but he's courting different. He still has to court different groups to get elected. Like, you think he should only reach out to Republicans and ignore every single person that's not a Republican?
Well, it was my understanding. I thought, like I said, these stories are getting all mixed up. I thought it was a libertarian function that
it was their
was
convention, their political convention.
Wow.
And so since he's one of the candidates, he came to speak. Because the libertarians have to decide who they want to endorse, if any of them.
But I thought that would have been strictly for Libertarian Party. Because the RNC and the DNC, they're strictly for who's running the party.
Yeah, but the Libertarian Party is not big enough to be its own party, so it has to attach itself to one of the two parties during the election.
Gotcha.
So it has to figure out which candidate it wants to throw in with. It's not trying to be a third party that's going to out Although I don't know why someone doesn't try.
I thought they always ran their own candidate for president.
But that doesn't mean that other candidates can come and speak. Like, I don't understand. Maybe it's me not understanding libertarians or politics. I don't understand why the struggle with have the libertarians having invited Trump. That doesn't seem weird to me that they would invite,
because at the Republican convention, they don't invite libertarians to come speak.
But the Libertarian is not one of the major two parties. So to me, the rules for them would be different than how the DNC and the RNC do it. They're not a major third party that can play on that same level. You're saying they should have their own candidates and not have to invite Trump or Biden at all?
They do have their own candidates. The Libertarian Party.
You're asking me something I don't have the answer to because I'm not a libertarian. I don't know this.
Me either.
I wish there was a libertarian that would come on and help me figure it out. To me, it's not an issue. I never once thought, oh, look, Trump's at the Libertarian convention. That's weird. It was like, oh yeah, Trump's a libertarian convention. Makes perfect
We'll
sense.
have
Most
to
libertarians I know,
ask
Trump's
Guy Fi.
supporters are right wing. There was no cognitive dissonance whatsoever, but because of my ignorance, it seemed like there should have been. Like for I guess people, it was weird that Trump spoke there, but I don't know why it was weird.
Because a lot of Republicans were jumping off of the Titanic before the trial, then hop back on after the trial. Still don't make no sense to me. I'm lost.
Yeah, I can understand wanting to hop off of a candidate that just got convicted of 34 counts of falsified records. And that was at the same time as the libertarian thing. Let's see, jump in. Oh, before the trial, they were distancing themselves from Trump. And then after the trial, Trump got a boost.
Yeah,
and so,
he did.
So the Republicans were pulling away from Trump. So he turned to the libertarians for some NS. And then when the trial boost happened, but did the libertarians court him or did he court them? Did he go to them and say, hey guys, can I speak at your convention? And they said, sure. Or did one of them say, hey, Trump, do you want to come speak?
I'm not sure.
I still don't think any of it's weird. Like it's not weird to me. It's not any kind of anomaly that Trump spoke at the Libertarian Convention. And maybe it should be. My mind can't make that kind of meaning of it. Probably because I don't know enough or care enough about any of them.
Works for me. They're not big enough to be a.
I still am curious how he ended up speaking, if it is a mystery.
Yeah, because that's the first time I ever heard of a Republican speaking at a libertarian.
Because you see them as like opponents. Why would they speak in
Yes.
each other's thing?
Yeah.
I don't see libertarians large enough to be considered an opponent to a Republican or a Democrat. So there's too much of a power differential. So it's not an even playing field where they can all do their own thing and not intermingle. But I don't know. I'm just guessing like how I would run an organization. Oh Lord, this AI is not one to tell me anything.
It don't like Republicans. It don't like libertarians.
And RFK spoke too, apparently.
RFK spoke too. Okay.
Like, I don't know if you're a politician and it's campaign season, why you wouldn't speak at any convention you possibly could. Yeah, they have to choose a party nominee, and Trump was one of the. There's a list of eligible candidates, but the Libertarian Party chair decided that Trump did not qualify, so he was not on the list of potential candidates they could have picked from. But he could have been if she didn't decide that he didn't qualify. So potentially they could have nominated Trump.
Oh. Oh, that's weird.
In fact, Donald Trump was nominated. Some of the libertarians did nominate him on the floor when they do their caucusing or nominating or however they do it. He was one of the people that was nominated, but then the the party chair came on and said he didn't qualify, so she had to like overrule him. So some libertarians did attempt to nominate him. So that explains his presence there. They were looking at him as a potential candidate.
Okay.
And he tried to work it and see what he could get out of it, and it turned into a disaster. And then I guess he turned on them, and they turned on him and said, this is not going to work out. And nothing you haven't seen in the panelverse before.
This is true. It'd be like getting Joshua Jones, Lib, and IFI on the panel at the same time.
Whew, Lord. They're all utopians. Are
Yep.
Joshua Jones and IFI aligned? Like, are their versions similar? Or do they clash?
To some degree, they're aligned.
IFI seems the more humane of the two, believe it or not.
They went and married Asian women.
Oh, they were passport hoes or bros, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, Neurojack is too.
I know. I didn't even know it was a thing. I've known people growing up that did that. I didn't know it was a thing to call it anything.
Well,
but yeah, I guess I've known passport bros before.
There's two different versions of passport bros. There's one version where the guys over here don't like the American women and they just go over there. And then the other versions is the ones that marry the Asians because they're submissive.
But because Joshua Jones's wife does not sound like the submissive type to me from just a little bit I've heard.
I don't know.
So are they going to Asia and staying there for the submissiveness as well, or is that a different reason? Or is the submissiveness at the root of both types?
No, submissiveness isn't the root of both of them. The original passport bros are the ones that went over there to live, like expatriates.
Because they didn't like American women.
Yeah, they could get by with
so
more.
It's more
over
to
there.
Get away from the women here.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily care if the Asians are submissive or not. They just
exactly
like not American.
Right.
And then the other ones want specifically that submissiveness.
The submissive quality. If I got that broke down right.
I'll have to trust you on that because I know even less. But well, yeah, it sounds plausible. And so Neurojack is, let's see, IFI and Neurojack and so Joshua Jones is the type that just went to like whatever, like I think he was sent there on his job or something.
I don't believe him.
You don't think he's in Vietnam?
Well, I believe he's in Vietnam, but I can't believe that he's a State Department employee with businesses over there in Vietnam. Yeah, it seems like it'd be an ethics violation.
That state employees can't own businesses? It seemed like it would be illegal to try to prevent them from participating in the free market like everybody else. Oh, you mean because it's overseas?
Well, because they're a government employee.
But why does that mean they can't own their own private businesses at the same time?
It's a ethics violation. The same reason when guys run for Congress, they're supposed to they have to go to a blind trust or they have to withdraw.
But what's the ethics violation? If his business has nothing to do with his job at the State Department, what's the violation?
Because you could be privy to inside information. or get special treatment for your business through the
So
government.
nobody that works for the State Department can ever own a business? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, you can only belong to the state and have no private enterprise outside of the state?
Right.
That
Because
doesn't.
you could use your government influence to help your business.
Well, Congress people own businesses. Owning a business while employed by the State Department is possible, but there are limitations. Federal ethics rules apply, and the State Department has its own guidelines. It doesn't outlaw it. They just have guidelines
Okay.
to do it under. They have to get approval. There's restrictions on certain clients and activities if they apply, which it may not in his business, and it should not interfere with your government job duties. This makes sense. This sounds reasonable and makes sense that there would be a way for State Department people to own businesses. So yeah, I don't think I never got the sense he was lying about that, but
It just seemed odd.
There's plenty of things that seem odd about Joshua Jones without that having been one of them for me.
He runs, I think he says he's got like 6 businesses that he owns. Now, how big they are, I don't know.
Well, he has a lot of real estate too. I mean, he comes from money. He's wealthy. He has real estate and businesses. That's what wealthy people do. None of that's. I didn't question any of that, unless he's just lying about the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I
But
have
I don't.
no way of.
It was credible enough to me. It was internally consistent. I don't have any way to verify it externally. So.
Oh yeah, no way to verify it.
It was a consistent narrative. On the list of things in the Panelverse to like eat at my brain and nag at me, it didn't even cross the threshold because he had so much going on with him outside of that that I could focus on.
But like when he said he was going to run a person on Discord in order to get their private information to dox them through his employment as a State Department employee, I thought that was an ethics violation myself.
Well, he did that on a stream, and the whole stream turned against him. That's when he came over here to tell us about it.
Oh, really?
I started asking questions. That's when he left the stream. That's the night that he and Neurojack were on here.
Oh.
He came over here and started talking about it, and I had questions, and I said, yeah, well, I don't blame them that for you threatened to dox somebody, and they had a very sensible reaction to that, and I didn't take his side, and it escalated from there, and he left the stream, and he put a big old dramatic note in Discord the next day saying, I'm no longer to be part of Jeff's server. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And he hijacked a conversation between me and Neurojack, even though he brought the conversation onto my stream.
But yet he ran around telling people you banned him.
He's lying. I put him on. I hid his comments because he was attacking the people on the panel. I didn't ban him.
I know you didn't, but that's what I'm saying. He was lying about that part.
I know. I lied about being banned, and everybody on here lies about being banned. Joe Cool was in a chat the other day lying about.
I saw that.
For some reason, that's the thing to do, is to cry victim, to pretend like you are a victim and somebody banned you, even though that didn't happen and it's not true. Multiple people, for some reason, fall into temptation to pretend like it's true so they can weave it into their story and run with it. I don't know why people do that.
I don't either. I don't
pretend to get banned when they didn't get banned for the victim point clout points that it gives them.
I got even with Steven the other night.
Oh, what happened?
He showed up at Flo's as the gay god.
Oh, gay God.
I went up there as a gay person. I changed my voice, and he didn't know it was me. And he was pulling his hair out trying to figure out who I was.
Did you change your name?
Yeah, icon and everything. Yeah, I changed my name to Loud and Proud, and I had a different avatar up there, and I was talking like a gay uh, a gayish man, real gay
What you have a
to him.
link? We should watch it. What stream is it on?
Oh, it was on Flows that same day that he came to your channel as Gay God. That
Oh,
night he went to Flows. I don't remember which day that was.
I'd have to go look for it. Okay. Well, I could
Yeah,
at least find
I'll
the
look.
date.
I'll have to look after I get home tomorrow from Nashville.
Yeah, it's
Take
kind of a knee-jerk panel reaction here. When people feel threatened, it's like, I'm gonna dox you, man. You better stop it. I'm gonna dox you. That's like their one recourse to power, I guess, that they feel they have.
Yeah, it's almost like a stalker. Yep.
But doxing's been around it's been around since the AOL, at least, probably before.
Oh, ever since the internet's been a thing. Oh, all right, Jeff. I'm gonna have to jump off here. I got some driving to do tomorrow. Take the boy to a doctor's appointment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll get some rest for that. I'll probably start winding it down too. I just had to get all that DEI stuff out.
And I hope I didn't hurt Chris's feelings today when I told him maybe you might want to lay off that bottle.
No, I told him the same thing. I didn't know he was on it. They were out celebrating today. He streamed it. They went to some little restaurant and had cake. And so like,
Don't
he's a
spend
grown man.
nothing.
He can make his own
Yep.
health decisions. He can make his own like see, I he needs to show up on the stream ready to be part of this community. Like if any employee showed up at a workplace, he'd be saying the same
Lost.
thing to them. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I hate being played with. I hate games, and I hate people that play me as less capable of understanding a situation than I am.
Gotcha.
And I get a
Yeah,
lot of
but
like, what me, what am I doing, what from him. Like today, he was in the room. I was doing the DEI stuff, and I said, he's like, oh, I want to come on the panel and celebrate the S tier thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing the DEI and wrap this up, and then I can bring you on. He's like, oh yeah, man, no problem. Yeah, take your time, do your thing. So I had the impression that he was watching the whole time and was going to come on and talk about DEI with me, because I even said, Chris, you would be a good person to have on this topic. You probably have things to say too, because we have discussed it before, just not this specific part of it. And so when I brought him on, he acted like he had no clue that we were talking about DEI and what's the top. This is the safe. And I was going off of what he was typing
oh
in
yeah.
chat.
When he
So
said
I feel
when,
like I was the one that got like, he's the one that fucked with me and then tried to gaslight and pretend like I was the one that was
well,
doing
yeah, because
something
he's
that he didn't.
when
I
he
hate
said
that shit. I hate when
he
people do that shit.
when he said, "What's the big deal with DEI anyway?" That's what set you off.
Yeah, first he said, I don't understand. I didn't really understand what you're about. Well, I thought you were in the chat listening because you were going to come on and join the conversation specifically about DI. If I misinterpreted your chat, then that's on me. But I had said, Chris, hey, you'd be a great person to bring up. Let me lay the foundation, like get the main points out, and then I want to bring you in to hear your contributions. No, Daniel. This is not couples counseling. I am my own thing. He can participate when he's able, and he can bring his A game. He's welcome to be on the stream. But I am grounding this community. This is a solo project with as many people as want to collaborate. You know, I tried the thing with Brandon. I'm open to collaboration with whoever. But that's where this stands. And I said that last week too.
Yeah, Brandon's
I
just
need my
not
panel
picking up.
back, and I need people that can collaborate on the level that I am looking to collaborate on. If you can't bring that, you are not the collaborator. And that goes for anybody. If you can bring that, let's talk.
Yeah, Brandon, I don't think he can't pick up on it at all.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault, but it's not his cup of tea.
But this is not his space. This is not a Looney Tunes. Well, it is in a way, but not his type of Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it's not the show place for strictly cartoon.
All right.
Well, Ken had a live tonight.
Oh, he did?
He had some older woman on there and Noel when I seen it. He wanted me to come up, and I said, well, I got to put my son to bed, and then I'll come back and join you. He said, well, I'm getting ready to go to bed myself. And I'm like, well, why did you ask me to come up if you're going to bed? I couldn't figure it out.
Oh, he sure did. He went like almost an hour and a half. Yeah, I think he's gonna bring his own like crowd to the Panelverse too, and attract each person that does this starts attracting their own. That's what, like with Chris and Lib and all this lately. I actually think this is growing pains, and I think this is Chris is doing stuff on his own channel now that is interesting, and people are responding to it. And I think it's stuff that would never have emerged if he just stuck with this. And so, in a way, I'm glad that's happening. Lib has ideas that he wants to start streaming. So each person that does this is going to bring their own, like, put their own stamp on it and bring their own type of crowd to the Panelverse.
Yeah.
So I think collaborating is good, but having like collaborating with people that are also doing their independent thing at the same time, I think is better than just trying to have a sustained collaboration with one person. As long as it's working, that's fine. But when it stops working, and you can't fix it or troubleshoot or do anything about it, then that the collaboration has a natural end to it. And he knows this. I mean, he's in the art world, theater world.
That's where his forte seems to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and now that he's back on track, this is an opportunity to really follow his dreams. And I support that. I absolutely do.
Nothing wrong with it.
But I am getting more clear what I want on this panel, and as that clarity comes to me, I have to take action to execute that and make sure this panel stays my vision.
Well, you're doing a pretty good job from what I can tell so far.
I'm trying. I mean, we made S tier. Hey.
All right. I'm going to dive. We'll catch you tomorrow sometime.
Yep, I'll be around doing my thing.
All right, have a good one, sir.
Get some rest, Chuck. Take care. All right, that's it for us. I think I'm gonna call it a night too. I'm just my vision for this thing. It's partly personal to the extent that your work is a reflection of you as a person, but it's really just to help people. I'm not in this for me or my ego particularly. It really is to I know that there's a certain type of people and it's hard for them to find the help they need. I have been in that situation. I have seen what's out there, try to provide the help. And so I really believe that I can be part of the solution for at least part of the mental health world. And so that's what this is, Laura. It's a vision beyond just me. So ultimately, I wouldn't do it if it was just me. I have plenty of people that can listen to me tell stories and talk about myself. So this is really like other focus ultimately. And if it ever stops being or like you feel like it's getting too like I'm on some megalomaniac kick or something, do let me know or try to stop me or bring it to my attention or something. I really, really am trying to make this be something that's helpful to other people. All right. Get some rest. Do self-care. Do something fun. That's what I'm going to go do. And I will be back tomorrow to talk about heroes and the hero's journey. So I will see you then. Go hell yourself.